Good day to you. My name is Tom Swanson, and I want to welcome you to Law of the Weird. I'm a licensed attorney in the state of Texas, and I have been so licensed for over 35 years. Back in 1971, when I first began working in the law, I began to read appeal court decisions. I think you know what I'm talking about. If somebody's dissatisfied with the result that they have in court, they sometimes appeal to a higher court. These are called appellate courts, and what they do is they review the decisions of lower courts to determine if there have been mistakes. At any rate, these appeal courts or appellate courts issue written decisions, and these decisions are preserved, organized, and used by lawyers and judges to determine the correct legal rulings in matters. At any rate, one thing I learned when I began reading these cases is the old adage that truth is stranger in fiction is absolutely true. And so what I want to do is from now on is share some of these weird cases with you. You're not going to believe some of this stuff. Let's start with the strange case of the people of California versus John Ronald Brown. You're going to love this. This was a case that came out of the California State Court of Appeals in 2001. And Mr. Brown was a physician in California who had his license revoked. He continued engaging in the practice of law by doing gender reassignment surgery and having his, quote, patients go over to Mexico. And there what he would do was he would do this surgery over there. Now, the case against him that led to the appeal had to do with second-degree murder and practicing medicine without a license. How this case developed is as follows. There was a man by the name of Firth, Mr. Firth, and he had a very unusual condition, and it was called apotemnophilia. How about that for a name, in case you want to be a Scrabble master someday? At any rate, this condition, apotemnophilia, is a condition where a person wants a perfectly healthy limb, that is an arm or a leg, amputated. Go figure. Maybe this means that what they say about California is true. At any rate, what happens is Mr. Firth gets in touch with Mr. Brown and makes inquiry as to whether Mr. Brown would agree to amputate one of his limbs. Mr. Brown, formerly Dr. Brown, agreed that he could do so, but it would have to be in Tijuana so as to avoid the California authorities, apparently. Mr. Firth paid Mr. Brown and made arrangements to travel to Tijuana. And then at the last minute, Mr. Firth kind of got nervous and decided that he wasn't going to have the limb amputated after all. What he did at that point, though, was called a friend of his who had the same condition, named Mr. Bondi. Mr. Bondi decided that he would go ahead and receive the surgery, and so he went to Tijuana and had his perfectly good leg amputated by Mr. Brown. And then he was transported back over, to California, and he was put in a hotel room, to recuperate with the IVs and so on and so forth. 2 days later, Mr. Bondi was found dead, apparently due to gangrene at the site of the amputation. This led Mr. Brown to be prosecuted for second-degree murder and as well practicing without a medical license. Now, what ended up happening was Mr. Brown's position, he was convicted and given, basically 15 years to life. And he appealed, and his argument was, since I did this surgery in Mexico, you can't prosecute me in California. You don't have the jurisdiction to do it. Well, and the California Court of Appeals disagreed and upheld his conviction, based upon the fact that if any part of the crime takes place, such as the planning in California, that gives California jurisdiction. So, what's the moral of the story? Be careful who you have amputate your limbs, I guess. It leads me to wonder, the gender reassignment surgery, did that involve cutting things off as well? Well, that's probably another story because it wasn't in the court case. At any rate, I'll be back from time to time if you are interested in the law of the weird. Take care. Have a good one.